All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you again for taking the time to join us this evening. My name is Alex Brown, and I serve as the Director of Education and Leadership Programs. And we are very excited to be able to welcome you to tonight's program, Finding Free Money. And while the title's a little bit catchy, the goal is obviously to talk about the importance of academic success, navigating financial aid, and helping our members find ways to support their academic journey. So, again, as we kick things off this evening, thank you so much for being here. I know we've got students from across North America. Thank you for taking the time to join us. As I said, my name is Alex Brown. I serve as the Director of Education and Leadership Programs. A quick intro for myself. I've been a part of our Delta Chi staff for several years now, before my current role in working with education and leadership programs. I've served the fraternity as our Director of Education, or excuse me, as Director of Alumni Engagement. And before that, have spent my career in higher education working with fraternity and sorority life, student leadership development, the fee process, and really just trying to help support students during their time at college and university. And so I'm grateful to be able to spend this evening with you all, and I'm very pleased and will allow our guest presenter to introduce himself. Would like to welcome Dr. Ryan Barone.
Good evening. Thanks so much, Alex. Yeah, my name is Ryan Barone. My pronouns are he, him, and his. I am not in Rocky Mountain National Park where this picture behind me was taken, though I wish I was. I am coming to you from Colorado, where I'm an alum of the Colorado State University chapter. I currently serve as the Assistant Vice President for Student Success at Colorado State University, and I'm also an assistant professor in the School of Education, where I teach master's and doctoral classes. My educational career is around trying to facilitate educational equity with particular attention to first generation, limited income, and racially minoritized students. And so I'm really excited to have this opportunity. Really grateful to Alex and to all of you for joining this evening.
Yeah, and again, a huge thank you to Dr. Barone, to Ryan for being here this evening. Was very excited when he was willing to share his time and talents with us, and really excited for all of you to have tonight's conversation. And so as we begin, obviously it's important to remember why are we here, and what this means to be a member of Delta Chi. And so obviously we look towards our founding documents, our ritual, our preamble, the basic expectations, as really that starting point for us to figure out what it means to be a member and what we're called to do. And so certainly education is always been a fundamental part of the experience. It's right there in our stated values: assisting in the acquisition of the sound education. It's in our basic expectations: I will strive for academic achievement and practice academic integrity. And so again, it's that great reminder for us constantly that academics and that pursuit of education is fundamental to who we are as members. And as we start to think about this, it's important to remember that education is about much more than the GPA. It's an opportunity for us to focus, again, continued lifelong learning and development. It's a reason that in our stated values, it's not assist in the acquisition of at least a 3.5, right? It's assisting in the acquisition of a sound education, and realizing that academics, like leadership, is really a journey and not just a destination. And so as we continue on and think about the role of education, it is important to remember that for each of us, we may approach it in a little bit different style. And a few of the quotes that we're sharing with you this evening are ones that resonate with us, and I think speak to the variety of ways that individuals can pursue and follow their path of ongoing education and development. Remembering that education is there to assist you in creating positive change in your chapter, in your colony, and also in your community. For me, when I look at the Nelson Mandela quote, that idea of a powerful weapon which you can use to change the world, I'm a firm believer that our organizations are designed to change the world. And in order to do that, being able to have education and that continued learning at the forefront is always going to be fundamental. Paraphrasing from Albert Einstein, the idea that education is a process, and utilizing your time in college as an investment in yourself and in your future is something that really resonates with me. And then finally, a precondition to survival in American society. Your education is essential to your progress and to your future. Certainly, I think a lot of times it's easy for us to talk about it in the career lens. And I think there, as we'll talk about later this evening, there's some really great information and things to keep in mind, and how your education and what you're investing in now will help you in your career path and paying dividends down the road. But also a reminder that it's to progress in your future. And again, the well-rounded person that you seek to be is always going to be something that is important to keep in mind. And so with that, it's important to, when we think about academics, it's natural, I think, at times for members of our organizations to be drawn immediately to the scholarship chair, right? Or the scholarship plans of our organizations. And that's great. And that is important. And they play a very fundamental part in our experiences as members. But with that in mind, it's important to think about critically, how do we start to prioritize academics in our experiences? So when you think about your scholarship chair, is it a position of prominence, or is it an afterthought position? Is this something that individuals are seeking out and saying, I know I can make a difference if I have this opportunity. I can really shape the way my organization is seen on campus or impacts our members? Or is it hey, it's a position, we need somebody to fill this, who wants to step out and help us out? And so with that in mind, we'd encourage you as we begin tonight to start to think about, what does this look like in your organization? And so to help with that, you're going to see a quick poll here. We want to know, when you think about the academic plan and what it looks like for your chapter, for your colony, for your organization, what does it look like? So please go ahead, take a moment to answer. What does your chapter or colony's academic plan look like? Great, keep those votes coming. Give it about another 10 seconds here, so please go ahead and cast that vote. We want to know, what does academic plans look like in your organization? All right, close that poll. So for a number of you, personalized support plans for each member. That's fantastic. We'll, love to hear a little bit more about that, how you achieve that. We'll talk about that later. Connection to resources and offices, meeting with faculty advisor, library hours. And for some of you, I don't know. And that's okay, right? That's part of the reason why we're here this evening, is for you to start to change the way we approach our academic planning and academic support for our organization. And it's great to see that we've got a range of responses, especially towards that end of connections with others like faculty advisors, campus resources and offices, and developing plans to meet the needs of our individual members. And that's a really great thing to keep in mind, because academic support of our members should not be a one-size-fits-all approach. I'm a big believer in the idea and mindset. For example, if I'm a performing arts major and you assign me library hours, well, that's not where I need to be. I may need to be, in a performing arts studio, or engineer in a laboratory, whatever the case may be. Each of your majors, each student has their own unique style and challenges. And so finding ways to tailor our support of the members is not only going to yield better results for the performance of our group overall, but particularly for our individual members. And at the end of the day, that level of support is fundamental to the type of things that we talk about in wanting to change the culture when it comes to academics. And so would love, as that little bit of a transition, feel free to throw into the chat, how do you begin to change the culture around academics within your organization? So please go ahead, feel free to share some thoughts in our chat. because again, as folks who are on the ground and working to build up that culture of engagement, that culture of support, it's really important for us to think about the ways we maybe can challenge the way it's always been done or the way that we see it happening in our campus communities, and finding ways to really be proactive in providing the support to our members that they really need.
So I used to be an academic advisor for many years, and every semester students would come in and share with me their GPA goals or maybe a goal to find an internship or find an on-campus job. And I would say most of the time students did not achieve those goals, in part because they weren't SMART goals, right? Hopefully you all know what SMART goals are. If not, this would be a good time to Google that. But setting specific and measurable goals that are time-bound and action-oriented is going to greatly predict the chances that you're actually going to achieve whatever academic goal or career goal that you have. I also really recommend folks thinking about creating accountability buddies, right? Who's going to hold you accountable? As a ABT member and the faculty staff advisor to the Delta Chi chapter, accountability is what they actually ask for the most from the ABT. And they ask us to keep them on track with timelines and deadlines. And that's okay in terms of some external motivation. But facilitating intrinsic and internal motivation, perhaps with one or two really trusted peers, is a much better strategy than creating kind of nebulous goals that spin out but aren't actually actionable. The last piece that I'd offer is visualizing your goals. And so I know lots of students who will write down goals on sticky notes and put it on their laptop or put it on their desk or computer. There is some data and some research about the power of psychology and helping to facilitate you achieving those goals. And so really being public about them, putting it out there and making sure they're SMART goals are much more likely to help you actually be motivated to achieve those than some kind of random goal that you set and don't return to on a regular basis. So some tips that we want to offer Alex and I for setting yourself up for success. Please forgive me. I am a sports fan and a fan of the Buffalo Bills. And so I'd like to offer you an analogy here as you think about setting yourself up for success. When I talk with students, I often encourage them to think as if they are a walk-on to a training camp for an NFL team, right? So if you're a walk-on, you're an undrafted rookie, and you walk into training camp, you don't have time to mess around, right? You don't have time to get a sense to see what other people are doing. You don't have the benefit of being drafted in a higher round and knowing you've got a safety net. You need to put your highest level of effort forward in the very, very beginning. So often students start college, especially for those of us that are the first in our families to go to college, and we're not sure what to do. And we spend a lot of time looking around and seeing, oh, Alex looks like he knows what he's doing. I'm gonna spend some time observing Alex and follow his activities as it relates to academics. Well, Alex may not be the best person to follow, right? And you're not going to know that until you try and engage. But we really encourage folks to try with the highest level possible and set up really strong patterns of academic success. And then at week 4, this is a really key week for students every semester. At week 4, perhaps then you can start to prioritize co-curricular engagements, other activities that remain really important. But if you start the inverse, if you start really slow, and then you get perhaps a poor exam grade or you do bad on your first paper, and then you try to ratchet up the effort, you may find that you're struggling much more to catch up to where you set your bar early on. And so pretend as if you're in training camp for the Broncos or the Buffalo Bills or another team, and put your highest level of effort first. This includes being prepared for class, reviewing your notes regularly. I tell students that when you're reviewing your notes, you want to actually replicate that same psychological spot and physiological spot you're in when you have an exam. And so if you're studying for an exam and you're drinking lots of Red Bull or caffeine, you want to actually drink Red Bull or caffeine to replicate that exact same physiological state when you're taking your exam. And you may find that memory recall is more readily available to you if you replicate that. Meeting with faculty is incredibly important. It's amazing how many faculty have office hours and folks don't actually follow up and participate in those office hours. I took a goal of every semester to meet with all my faculty in the first 5 weeks just to get to know them, to ask them some open-ended questions about what students have done in the past to be successful in their classes, and then if possible, ask them about their passions, their interest area. I'm confident, and as a faculty member myself, at the end of the semester, if I'm trying to decide between a B+ or an A- for a student, if that student has shown effort and come to faculty office hours throughout the semester, that student's much more likely to get bumped up to the A- because of the effort that they showed from the very beginning, and then the rapport that somebody built with that faculty member. Setting incremental goals is also incredibly important. So instead of just aspiring for that 3.8 or that 3.5 or that 2.5, whatever it is, setting small goals that are more achievable along the way can be really helpful. the power of checking something off of your to-do list actually creates also some positive psychological pieces in terms of your overall engagement. So being really thoughtful around this is important. Avoiding distractions, certainly some people are good at multitasking, and I think that that's okay. There's increasingly more and more research that indicates multitasking is not actually effective for deep and enriched memory. And so if you're trying to stream, Netflix and also study for your exam and have other things going on in the background, you may find that that's not as successful as you think it is, especially as you get to some higher level classes. And so trying to figure out what that looks like for you, certainly things like music can be great for people, but trying to minimize your cell phone time, your interruptions, is really key for deep and enriched learning. These last two, I also talk with students a lot around studying, and certainly students are inclined to cram. I certainly crammed and occasionally pulled all-nighters. Increasingly, there's a body of research called the science of learning, and it indicates that that kind of binging studying is not effective for your memory recall or also for your deep learning. And so let's say you've only got 6 hours in total to study for an exam that's on Wednesday. If you take all 6 of those hours and you really put them into Tuesday, and you stay up really late and devote 6 hours straight to studying and take your exam on Wednesday, you're actually worse off than if you took less time. Let's say you only had 5 hours, but you spread that 5 hours out over a week period and studied every day for an hour leading up to that Wednesday exam. You'd actually be much more efficient with your time and your studying and more likely to be successful in that exam. And so doing your very best to plan schedules ahead of time, to try to prioritize time with breaks to study, and do it in small chunks that you return to frequently, as opposed to just cramming it all in at the very end. I know we all live busy lives, and so this is where the planning part really comes into place, but really trying to reflect on the science that we have to help indicate what's the most successful for your actual academic success is important. Campus support, I love the poll question. That's the next slide, Alex. So that talks a lot about some of the resources that are available. I think Alex and I are glad when we were preparing for this, we thought that perhaps most of you might report library hours as the way of supporting academic success. So we're glad to see some of the personalized support there. To Alex's point, the scholarship chair is one of the most important people in the fraternity. And so if you don't have that role, you should. And if you do, trying to help that person to set themselves up for success will be really, really important. Again, as an advisor, and I advise the chapter at the University of Connecticut as well as CSU, advisors really love to help students out, and often it just takes the students asking them. And so asking advice on not just resume and not just internships, but actually career trajectory, right? What is your why, as Simon Sinek says, around your overall desire to be in education, and try to figure those things out. Same with your advisors, your academic advisors, and also your faculty. If you go in with big picture questions, I think you might find some really rich discussions ensue, and it could be really useful for you. Probably most of you are at colleges or universities where you pay some kind of student fee, and generally those students' fees goes to subsidized tutoring, so academic resource centers and writing and math centers. What we often find is the students who go to those are often the B+ students trying to get to A-, and there's not enough of the D and C students going to try to get to B's and C's in terms of their overall engagement. And so you're paying for those, whether you take advantage of those services or not. So we really encourage you to maximize your money to improve your ROI, and check those things out and figure out what might work for you. And it might not be the writing center, and you might need some different kind of support services, but you're not going to know unless you check it out. And those really are available pretty broadly speaking to lots of different groups of students. And then, of course, thinking across organizations. Hopefully within Delta Chi, there's some good academic support, guys who have already perhaps taken classes that you're taking that you're in now, and you should talk to those folks, but also other fraternities and sororities outside of Delta Chi. And then other student organizations can be great places of resource for you that you may be able to join and engage with in addition to your Delta Chi experience that can be really, really useful to broaden your networks and try to facilitate some more connections to different academic supports. Next, we're going to start to talk a little bit about the financial end, and obviously that's the piece of the title. It's really important to know the difference between some of these experiences, and oftentimes folks don't know the differences. And so scholarships and grants generally are money or resources that come to you that you don't need to pay back, right? These can be merit-based, these could be need-based, these can be just because you took initiative to apply, and Alex is going to talk more about that a little bit later. But this is the kind of money you want to start with, right? You want to get those resources that perhaps you don't have to pay back. A next level support is probably your second choice is loans. This is where you really need to pay attention to things like interest rates on the loans to figure out what your payment plans are going to look like. It's kind of nice when they're in deferment for a while and you don't have to pay back the loans or pay back the interest, but pretty quickly that will start to compound and you'll need to pay that back. And so really paying attention to if they're subsidized by the federal government, they generally have a lower interest rate. If they're unsubsidized, they generally have a higher interest rate. And talking through that with your families if you can, if you've got family support, but also people on campus is really important. I work really closely with the Office of Financial Aid, and in this case, I really believe that the squeaky wheel does get the grease. And so asking if there's different things that financial aid can do to help you is really important. This happens to me dozens of times each semester. Students will come to me with financial concerns, and I'll send them to financial aid. And they're able to sometimes shift things around, right? So there's an estimated family contribution that they really look at, but there's also an estimated cost of attendance. And so if your rent changes, if your car breaks down and your costs go up, if you get more insurance, that's all part of the estimated cost of attendance. And financial aid doesn't know that that changes unless you tell them. And if you tell them, you might find that they've got some resources for you. This is particularly true for students that are Pell eligible or get work study and some lower middle class students. And so if that's the case that you're in, you may find that there's additional resources, but it's a good practice for everybody. You're certainly not going to know unless you ask. And so in this case, I don't think you can bug financial aid too often. Just doing a general check-in to review your financial aid package to see if there's anything that you can adjust, I think is really, really important. Work study and student employment are awesome. It's actually a little bit counterintuitive. Students who have work study or student employment jobs actually have higher retention and graduation rates than students who are not working at all. And so if you don't have a job and you're not working now, and you've got the ability to do so, we really encourage you to pursue that, especially if it's on campus. That seems to be the sweet spot for having the big benefit for students overall. Now, there is a tipping point. If you're working more than 20 hours a week, that starts to have detrimental impacts. And so I was a first generation limited income student in undergrad, and I actually worked full time and went to school full time. And that's not the path we advise. If you can avoid that at all, I think that that's definitely desirable. Sometimes students will work and then not take as many classes. And that calculation may not play out in your favor if you're able to graduate in 4 years, but work a little bit less as opposed to working more and graduate in 5 years. You might be better off graduating in 4 if possible. So those are all personal decisions that you need to make. But if you've got an on-campus job, if you've got a work study job, that's awesome. Try to keep those hours around 18 or 20 hours a week. And if you don't, I think that that's something that you should definitely try to pursue, presumably on campus or if not off campus. Last is internships. If there's one thing that I say today that I'd really hope that you all take and move forward with, it's the power and importance of internship. It's the single most important activity that you can do that's correlated with first destination outcomes that you desire. First destination being the job or graduate school that you're looking for after your bachelor's degree. Internships have the greatest possible correlation to positive outcomes there. So if there's any way you can do an internship or a co-op or externship, that's incredibly powerful and incredibly important. Unfortunately, there's some unpaid internships, which I think is probably unethical for employers to do. And that's hard. Not all of us have the privilege of leisure time to volunteer or donate our time. So if you can find a paid internship, I think that's really important. And lots of students have been told to wait till junior year to do internships. And I think that that's wrong. I work with a career center at CSU, and it seems like sophomore year and the first sophomore summer is actually probably the sweet spot for a few reasons. One, a lot of students do an internship and realize they hate the job or they hate that area and they change their major. And the earlier you decide that and figure that out, the better. So that's actually really positive to learn early. Same with student teaching. The sooner you can student teach, the better. So you can figure out if you actually like that experience. But second, you can start to build on an internship, and students often have multiple internships as a result. And increasingly, employers are hiring directly from internships. And so again, if there's one thing that I would focus your time, energy, and resources on, it's securing an internship because it could have really great positive outcomes for you as it relates to career or graduate school, depending on what your next step is. So finding academic supports. So this is really important, and these are a series of ideas that Alex and I have that we want to share. You do need to complete the FAFSA every year. And so even though you completed it, if you're a first-year student to come to college, you want to complete it every year to update your information, to update that estimated family contribution. And you may find that your package shifts from year to year, hopefully in beneficial ways. Increasingly, there's research scholarships. And so if you're in a STEM discipline, you'll often have faculty who have grants and can take on undergraduate students in grants. This is also true in liberal arts and applied sciences as well. And they need help sometimes for undergrads doing coding or different kinds of research. That's where the relationships with that faculty member is so important. And these are things you could ask about when you go to office hours is, hey, do you have a grant that I might be able to help you with? And if you don't yet, please know that I'd like to work with you if you get that opportunity. Study abroad is incredibly important and also quite expensive, depending on how long you do it and where you do it. Universities are increasingly creating scholarships to support study abroad, especially if you're from a more limited income background, as I was when I was in college. And so again, if you ask the study abroad office or the international office if there's scholarships available, increasingly students are not actually becoming aware of those, in part because we don't do a good job advertising it. So a lot's on us, but a lot's also on the students for not taking the initiative to follow through and apply. So this is incredibly important. Language scholarships and other really unique scholarships based on your life experiences, based on your identities, based on your family can be really helpful as well. Again, financial aid is often a place that can go to help with you with doing some of the research related to scholarships. And then of course, doing Google searches are really important. When you're looking outside of the university, there are some scams, and unfortunately there's some predatory scholarship pieces. And so whenever I'm looking at a scholarship I haven't heard from, I Google the name and then Google, spam, or is this actually authentic and true or not, to try to do some research to make sure that somebody's not trying to take advantage of you. But at least internally, there's lots of scholarships that often go untapped that can be really, really helpful for folks. And then the last piece is community involvement. And so obviously you're probably in Delta Chi if you're engaging tonight. And so that's an awesome extension of community involvement, and you may volunteer as part of your Delta Chi experience. And I would say really seeking at least one more meaningful engagement, be that volunteerism outside of Delta Chi, be another club or organization, will give you even more additional examples that you can then reflect upon in things like a scholarship essay or application to try to make you more unique and to stand out from the rest of the crowd. Here, don't be afraid to talk about some of the things that you've overcome to be at the place that you're in now. If you've had challenges throughout your life, I think that that's a good opportunity to share what you've learned from those challenges as one way to reflect and demonstrate your ability to critically reflect and to have ongoing learning as part of your evolution overall. Next, I think Alex is going to talk about some even more opportunities for finding financial support.
Yeah, so as Ryan mentioned, a lot of these pieces you're likely thinking immediately the financial aid office on campus, which is great. That can be one of your best friends when we start to think about your ability to financially navigate your college experience. They, as Ryan said, can be some of your best friends. Additionally, your foundation for your institution is where so many of those scholarships are going to be funded through. So those two elements are really important to keep in mind. But there are a few other places that we may not immediately think of that can expand our horizons and provide some other opportunities for access. Again, when we talk about finding free money, yes, it's a bit of a joke, but in reality, it's there. There are scholarships across North America, internationally, that are available, that are waiting for individuals to apply for these funds. And so what we would always encourage you to think about is, if you meet this criteria, it is worth your time, energy, and effort to apply. Because go ahead and raise your hand, or give the little thumbs up reaction if you feel like you're not paying enough for college. Right? Like, of course not. College is expensive. This is truly, hopefully a wise investment in your time. But let's be honest, we could all, I think, benefit from that opportunity to find financial dollars to help support our endeavor. And so with that, we encourage you, as Ryan said, a quick Google search can pull up some great information for scholarships that you may not have heard of. Here's a few. So a couple things that we point out: the Gilman International Scholarship Program. This one is designed to help support students who want to study abroad. So if this is something that you are interested in, but haven't been able to figure out how do I actually pay for this as part of my collegiate experience, here's a scholarship that's available at beyond your campus that can support your experiences here and now. The Boren scholarships are devoted to students who are looking to learn a language. So if that is your major or you've got a minor, these are all opportunities for funds that are there to help support your endeavors. And then finally, the Udall Scholarship is leadership focused on public service, the environment, and a variety of other Native American causes. And so there's a whole host of things that are out there and available for you to help navigate and find. Yeah, I see Kevin, I agree. I'm paying too much, right? Like that's the thing. We could all look for those opportunities to try and make that college experience a bit more affordable. So we'd encourage you to take that moment to Google some of the things that are out there. Look for things that are connected to your major or the industry that you want to go into. Have that conversation with financial aid. And at the same time, many companies, corporations, businesses also offer scholarships. These are just a few that are readily available with, again, a quick Google search that you can find. I'm guessing most of you, or maybe if you're college football fans, are familiar with the Dr. Pepper scholarship piece. It is a very highly publicized one that's connected to college football and the playoffs. But they go well beyond that. Foot Locker, Starbucks are all companies that offer them. Some are specific scholarships that are just available to funds. Others, like Google, have connections to internships. And so some have ties to families. So if you've got a family member that works for a company, that is also a great opportunity to have them, your parents, your guardians, your family members, check and see what other companies offer. Are there scholarships available through those organizations that you can have access to that are there specifically to support you? So again, it can be really helpful for us to start to expand the way we think about financial aid and examine the opportunities that we have to make our ability to access those a little bit greater. And so again, when we talk about the financial aid process, it's important to remember that there's a variety of factors that come into play. And time again, it's going to be, for the most part, rooted in your academic performance. There will be other outlying factors like involvement and community giving and a variety of things. And again, we'll talk about some opportunities here in a little bit. But it's important to remember that for many, academics is going to be at the core. And so when we talk about the importance of a strong academic performance for our members and our organizations, it's multifaceted. Yes, there are GPA requirements to be recognized on your campus or to hold an office or to be initiated in Delta Chi. And those benchmark pieces are important. There's, as we talked about at the top of the presentation, the sort of more holistic view of why education is important. But again, when we're talking about financial aid and finding ways to help our members afford the college experience, this is another benefit to having a strong academic program for your chapter and for your colony. If you have that strong support and you have that culture of academic achievement and excellence, you are putting your members in a space they are better able to not only succeed in that realm, but put themselves in a place to be really competitive, to find some great scholarships to help support their experiences as members, and ultimately make the college experience more accessible. Again, we know that the cost of membership, attending an institution is significant. And let's be honest, it costs money to be a part of the fraternity as well. And so when we think about all the ways that we spend money on our college experience, how do we put ourselves in a place to reap those benefits and that return on investment? So it's important to remember, one of the things that we want to remind folks of are the resources that are available on our website. There are a number of different things available to the scholarship chair that we would encourage you to check out. All you got to do is go to our website, click on member resources, and they're listed right there. Again, a plug for your faculty advisor, the other alumni that are available to you. These are great individuals that can help provide some insights in your own growth and development. Something that isn't listed but would love to plug is our Delta Chi Mentorship Network. There are a number of great resources there that not only can help you expand your network and finding maybe connections for internships and things like that, but there's also an opportunity to a whole section of things that, if you're looking for mentoring advice, fall in that academic category. So whether you are trying to figure out and identify your major, how to make the most of your time in college, how does that collegiate experience translate to the job or internship search, or even looking for those opportunities and applying for law school and med school, how do I navigate that process? The Delta Chi Mentorship Network is a great way for you to build some relationships that can help you find ways to talk about the membership experience in ways that you maybe haven't thought of. And then finally, through Lessonly, we have the opportunity to help support you build your own academic support through Lessonly. All you have to do is go to the website, deltachi.lessonly.com/learn. We'll drop the link in the chat here for you in a moment. But again, that is a great way for you to figure out and create academic support plans that are a much more tailored approach than a one-size-fits-all broad approach to supporting the development of our members. And so when we talk about those financial resources that are available, again, your financial aid office, your foundation are all going to be wonderful resources to help you identify scholarships that your members can apply for. But we also want to take a moment to plug our own Delta Chi Educational Foundation. This is a separate organization from Delta Chi. They, obviously we are supportive of one another, but it's their whole purpose and reason for existence is to provide financial support to our members and our educational programs. They are there to help assist in the acquisition of a sound education. There are a number of scholarships that are available through them. And again, I'll put a little plug, the deadline to apply is April 15th. And so this is a great opportunity for you to take advantage of some scholarships that are specifically available to Delta Chi's. And so with that, a few of the ones that are available to you, again, we talked about some of the ways that folks can apply and what's maybe a good fit. The foundation provides a variety of opportunities for scholarships. There are some that are focused just on leadership. Give me a reaction in the toolbar. How many of you have heard of UIFI, the Undergraduate Interfraternity Institute? Okay, seeing a couple. So this is a national leadership program that Delta Chi Foundation provides scholarships to attend. So this is an opportunity. It's not academic related. This is about investing in who you are as a leader. This is a scholarship that all our members can apply to be a part of. Additionally, all of these things have different criteria, so we'd encourage you to check out the website. Some are related specifically to GPA, their involvement in the chapter or colony, leadership outside of the organization. So things like the Borelli Family Leadership Award or the Dwayne and Mary Meyer Scholarship are awards that are a combination of all those things. The Washburn Scholarship is focused specifically on individuals who best display the values of the fraternity. So perhaps you've got a member in your organization that is just a tremendous brother. They show up, they participate, they're a leader in the organization. They try very, very hard on their academics, but maybe they don't have that stellar GPA that somebody else has. They are still eligible and can be recognized for their contributions in so many ways to reflecting the values of the fraternity. So again, these are some great opportunities. Also, if you are a brother that's getting ready to graduate and are applying to graduate school, there's a graduate student scholarship available specifically for that. There are, I don't know if for some of you that maybe followed some of the things on social media, this is a scholarship that has been very, very successful for a number of our individuals who have applied. Again, partly because some folks don't think of to apply for funds for graduate school, when in reality, this is a fantastic opportunity to help cover the cost of your continuing education. So again, I'm going to go ahead here and drop it in the chat, but feel free to encourage you to check out the foundation's website. Right there, you'll find information about all of these scholarships, as well as the links to apply. The deadline is April 15th. Please, please, please throw your name in the ring. Fill out those applications, because if you're doing this tremendous work, if you are living the values of our fraternity, this is a great way to be recognized for your contributions and help ease some of that financial burden that you may be facing.
Okay, here's your warning. Alex and I have been talking a lot. You're going to probably have to turn on your videos, and we're going to put you in small groups in just a minute. So you got a 1 minute heads up on that. And while that's happening, Alex, I think that folks are asking for you to put that link that you mentioned to the foundation in the chat. So folks are looking for that. That would be awesome. So there's increasingly conversation around if college is worth it right now, right? And here's some polling data that indicates the folks self-reporting if college is necessary for workforce success has actually changed, right? And has decreased from 2009 to 2016. And so this is a big question. You might be asking this question yourselves, your family might be asking you. And so we'd like you to sit and think about this for a little bit. So in just a minute, Alex is going to put you in breakout rooms. So you're going to be in small groups of people that you don't know. You do need to find a note taker. Okay, so here's your instructions. You'll get in a small group, you'll turn on your video, you'll introduce yourselves. We need to find a note taker, so decide who's taking notes in your small group. And then these are your 2 discussion questions. 1, do you think a bachelor's degree is worth the cost in terms of career outcomes? So do you think the ROI is worth it to you? And then we're mostly interested in 2, and we hope you spend most of your time talking about how you can maximize your investment by pursuing your college degree. So what are the things that you can do while you're still in college to maximize the really big investment, as Kevin noted, that you're putting in to get this bachelor's degree? And then when we come back, we're going to ask the note takers to share a little bit in the chat in terms of the conversation as it relates to item 2. So is your bachelor's degree worth it? And how can you maximize that investment? So Alex is going to put us into breakout rooms for 8 minutes or so. Alex, I don't know the exact time you're going to land on, but we'll be in those for a little bit of time, and then we'll come back and wrap things up. So hopefully you have good discussions in your small groups, and we'll see you back here in a little bit.
You should all have received your link. If not, feel free to go ahead and click the breakout room button and you should see your invitation there.
Looks like a few of you are still with us. Maybe you were multitasking. If folks could click the breakout room button and join your assigned breakout room. We're going to be in small group discussions for the next little bit.
Again, for those of you that are still with us, feel free to click the breakout rooms button. You should see your invitation to join your breakout room.
If you don't, you're going to have to talk to me and Alex in a minute. So this is your last warning. You're going to get stuck talking to us if you don't go to your breakout room. Yep, they got some guys to go, Alex. Saw some movement. How long did you set up the breakout rooms for, Alex?
I didn't set an official time. I was just going to bring them back, give them a warning in about, because you said you wanted about 8 minutes, right?
Yeah, I think that's maybe, yeah, because I think we only, have a couple more slides and then want to leave it open to Q&A. So yeah.
Yeah, so I was going to give them a heads up in about 4 minutes that they'll have at that point about 3 minutes, or well, I'll give them a heads up when they've got about 3 minutes remaining, and then we'll have that 1 minute wrap up time.
Perfect. Sounds good. See, I'm curious if any of the people in our room want to talk. Kyle, Brad, Gregory, any of you all here? You want to turn on your cameras and introduce yourselves?
Make a little note, and we can, for those that may be here for Devontae's thing, we can let them know.
Yeah, totally. I don't see any CSU guys in here, unfortunately. I know they said it went out. They said they were going to join. So I'll be following up with my chapter too.
There you go. Yeah, I was a little, I was wondering because I was trying to remember when I first looked this weekend, we were still, I don't know, single digits, low doubles. And then like today, just that's when everybody signed that,
Yeah.
So I was like, all right.
Yeah,
Not
it's awesome.
surprised.
How many, I know we were admitting guys throughout or people throughout. I don't know how many we got total. Did we get up to 60? Was it that many?
I don't think we quite hit 60. I think it was
Yeah.
like 55.
Yeah, cool. Okay.
So
Great.
from our webinar lens lately, it's definitely been one of the highest. So
Good. That's great.
yeah.
Is anybody here with Alex and I? Can you hear us? And anybody want to share anything? Wyatt or Nino, Ryan? I'm not sure if any of you all are able to now engage with us. Cool. 2 minutes.
Gave him the heads up.
Perfect.
Yeah, and thanks for the heads up on the link. I had somebody who had private messaged me before, and so when I dropped in the link, it was still set for that person private message. So
Oh, perfect, right?
it's like, whoops,
That's great.
forgot to switch that.
Well, I'm good. Those people were interested and asked for it, so they were following along. So yeah,
Yeah.
good sign.
All right. Well, I will probably give them close the room, which will give them about another minute to come back, and give them about 30 seconds before I hit that button.
Perfect.
All right, it's hit close. We'll have a few start to probably join us here in a few moments, and then I'll be back in about 40 seconds.
Oh, is that us?
Welcome back to the
everybody. Got about 10 seconds, and everyone should be back with us. Hope you enjoyed your breakout room conversations. All right, Ryan, I think everyone's back.
Okay, great. Welcome back. Hopefully folks had good small group conversations. Actually, I think we've got a minute or two here. I'd love to hear from a couple folks. And so I know we set up a note taker. Maybe we could hear from a couple groups around what you talked about in terms of how to best maximize the investment that you're making for your college degree. Anybody comfortable to share maybe a tip or two that came out from the discussions in your small groups?
So basically, we discussed about just making connections with your classmates and your professors and all of that, and using the resources that the campuses have available, just so that in that way you have a higher likelihood of getting a career that's worth or that you want and stuff like that. So basically, it's just get involved and make connections and all of that, because it just increases the likelihood of getting the job that you want or that you enjoy.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Tyler. Every year I talk to students who are seniors who have to get letters of recommendation and actually don't know faculty members to ask because they didn't actually get the chance to develop relationships with those faculty. And so to your point, taking the initiative to do that, I think has so many benefits, both short and long term. So I really appreciate that. How about another group or two? Anybody else want to share some of the conversations that you had in your small groups?
We kind of came to the same conclusion that Tyler came to, where it's not really just about getting the degree, it's about establishing the relationships in order to figure out how you can be successful in the end.
Absolutely. That's awesome, Tommy. Thank you. Yep. And to underscore my point earlier about internships, right? When we look at people's GPAs, the difference between career outcomes for students who have a 3.2 versus a 3.8 GPA are really negligible. There's not much of a difference. But the difference for people who have internships in terms of their first destination outcomes are much bigger. And so GPA is important if you want to go to grad school. You know, it's maybe important for some things, but it's really the involvement, the ways that you're supplementing your undergraduate degree in ways that you can put on your resume and then talk about in a job interview that are really important. Here's a quick plug too for your ePortfolio. This is also really important. So this is increasingly a high impact practice, but a ways that you can digitally archive all of the learning that you have that you can then package for something like a job interview. If you're in journalism, you're probably doing this. If you're in engineering, maybe you're doing this. But if you're not in those areas, websites like Weebly and Wix are the favorites for undergrads that I talk to that are free websites that you can create where you can put up your own blog, some of your own writing, some of your own thinking, and start to capture some of the learning that you have. And you may find then when you're graduating that could be really, really useful as you're thinking about jobs or internships or graduate school. How about for one more group? I think we had 8 breakout groups. I'd like to hear from one more in terms of anything else that you talked about, or even if you weren't the note taker, maybe anything else that you'd like to offer about ways to maximize your college experience.
I think I'm gonna just add on to what you said earlier. It's not really just about the actual degree. It's more like what you're doing within those 4 years to actually maximize, um, I guess what you can say after, to your opportunities after coming out of college. So what's gonna help you actually succeed with that bachelor degree? It's not really about, yeah, I have the certificate. It's what can I do with the certificate to actually get me to that next step in life.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well said, Marlo. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Thank you. Well, thanks so much for the engagement. If you got any other ideas that didn't get said, feel free to dump those in the chat, but we'll keep moving along. Alex, if you could flip to the next slide. I think we can skip this one. Yeah, so there's no question. It's objectively true and it's undebatable that when you average everything together, college degrees are worth it. Now, of course, there's case studies and we all know people from high school who have had awesome careers without college, and that's cool. You know, folks in the military, folks in the trades, that's incredible. And we also know folks with college degrees that are struggling and are having a hard time finding jobs. So all of that's true, but that does not negate the absolute objective truth that a college degree is highly correlated with overall success in terms of earnings, in terms of life satisfaction. And that's actually correlated with things like health outcomes. It's correlated with things like voting and volunteering behavior. And so there's no question that a college degree is worth it and is worth the sacrifice, even when Kevin and many of you are paying too much. There's no doubt that the ROI is really strong. And a lot of today, I think, is around trying to maximize that ROI so that you can have the best possible impact. And there's a gap. And this is why I think Alex and I keep talking about ways to kind of quantify your learning and your experience. The reality is when you ask people like me who work at universities, 96% of chief academic officers believe that we're preparing students well for the workforce. But when you ask business leaders, there's a gap there. So there's a self-reported feeling like students are not prepared for success when they enter the workforce. And so all the things that we talked about today, we think can really help set you up for that overall success. And then my last slide is just kind of a reminder. I was really plugging internships today. Again, that's the number one thing I think you can think about. These are the activities that you can engage in that are the highest correlated with success after your college degree. Number one is internships, I've said it. Number two is college employment, we've talked about that. Your major selection does matter, and so being really thoughtful around what major you choose. And then things like volunteer experience and extracurricular activities are important. you'll notice the least important thing here is college reputation, right? And so we all think that perhaps the big name college or university is actually going to land you a job when you leave. And maybe if you're in a handful of schools that does, but for 95% of the colleges and universities, the name or the title of your college and the reputation is much less important than if you do internships and you do things co-curricularly throughout your experience. And that includes community colleges. If you started at a community college, I think that that's really valuable experience that you can then leverage as you're thinking about career. And Alex, I think we'll turn it over to you for some concluding tips.
Yeah, definitely. So again, as we start to wrap up our time together this evening, there's a few things that we'd always ask you to keep in mind and can really help set you up for success. So regardless of your academics or applying for financial aid, do your research. Understand what again, from a financial aid standpoint, what are the requirements that I need to meet? What are those things that I need to keep in mind to qualify? For academic success, it's again knowing what I need to be successful. What are my personal strengths and challenges that I deal with, and so how do I put myself in a place to be successful? Connect with your advisor. These are great individuals that can not only help you navigate the experiences on campus and finding success academically, but again, how do you start to translate your experiences from the collegiate setting to the professional setting? I'm again a firm believer that membership in Delta Chi is really preparing you for everything you're going to face in a job. Again, something I think that fraternities and sororities do better than any other organization on campus is drama. So if you are graduating and you don't have conflict resolution as a part of your resume or a skill set, that's a missed opportunity, right? So again, it's being thinking about how you start to translate, and that advisor can be a great individual that can help you with that process. Being mindful of your online presence. Again, social media is everywhere. It doesn't seem to matter how many times you say it, yet it's something that can continue to come back and haunt individuals. So being mindful of what your online presence looks like. If your online presence is bigger than who you are, you may want to revisit that and understand, is that reflective of who you are as an individual, who you're trying to present yourself to be as an employee, and who you are as a representative of Delta Chi and of your institution. Again, understand what it is beyond your GPA. Yes, your academics are important. Your GPA is tied to a lot of different things, whether that is academic standing, availability for scholarships, all those elements. But again, it's not doesn't have to define you or what academic success means for you. And so understand there are a variety of ways to find that academic success and to be proud of the achievements and the work that you are putting in to put yourself in a place to be successful. Have your resume ready. You never know when that opportunity, sure, for a job, if you are to that place, but especially for an internship, you might be having a conversation with an alumnus or a professor, and they let you know about, hey, there's a great internship opportunity. Can you hand me a copy of your resume? If you don't have one, that can be a missed opportunity, right? So being sure that you are continually updating that, making sure that you are ready to go and that it is continually reflective of your growing process and experiences can be a great way to make sure that you're ready for the job market, for the internship market, whatever it is that you might be navigating. And then I think at the end of the day, it's about remembering what sets you apart. Thinking back to the slide that Ryan shared a few moments ago of, okay, well, if I'm graduating from the same institution with thousands of other people with the same major and my GPA is separated by 0.2%, is that what's going to not get me the job, right? So I think it's important to understand who you are as an individual, who you are as a leader, and how your experiences and what you've done sets you apart from everybody else. Because if I'm sitting across from you in an interview, I can see that GPA, I can see where you went to school, and that's great. But what does that mean? And the same thing goes for your Delta Chi experience. If you put that you were the D or the treasurer of a fraternity, okay, great. If I was never a member, great. You handled the account for some parties. Okay, great. What does that really mean? But if you really can translate and say, I was responsible for accounts receivable of tens of thousands of dollars. I managed a multi-figure budget, responsible for debt collection, all these sorts of things as the F or new member educator, right? For the AMC, and thinking about how you developed the next generation of leader. That's going to be something that speaks to me as an employer. For those of you that are members of colonies and working on your chartering piece, this is an in-depth process. So you want to talk about project management, this is really something that can set you apart on your resume. But have you thought about how you frame it, how you want to talk about it? So again, understand what sets you apart from everybody else. In these settings, it's okay to brag, right? It's okay to be proud of your accomplishments and the things that you have achieved, because these are important parts of your story, and they can help potential employers, faculty members, whoever it may be, better understand who you are and what you bring to the table. So with that, we want to open it up for any questions that folks may have. Please feel free, if you want to unmute yourself, you can drop questions in the chat. Any questions for us this evening? All right. Well, you'll see in the chat, I've just dropped, I know I mentioned the Build Your Own Academic Plan. That's available in the chat. And right now I'm going to be putting in the link for the mentorship program. Would definitely encourage you to check that out as well, as an opportunity to expand your network, learn from other Delta Chi's. And our contact information is on the screen. I want to thank everybody for taking the time to be here this evening. Again, a huge thank you to Ryan for sharing his thoughts with all of us this evening and his expertise. Really excited for the information that he shared, and I think is a great example of the resources that are available to you at your local level, right? Ryan is not the only fantastic faculty advisor who gives so generously of their time and talents. And so hopefully you got a lot of different takeaways and things from this evening's program. My one ask for all of you is that either today or tomorrow, send your faculty advisor, your staff advisor, a note and just say thank you, and hopefully set up a meeting, right? If you don't know who that person is, reach out, right? Like, I will help you find that information tonight, if that's what you're wondering about. So again, thank you all for being here. Our information is on the screen. Please don't hesitate to reach out at any time if you've got questions, thoughts, or concerns. Also, your chapter coaches are great resources as well that can help you navigate this process. When we talk about assisting in the acquisition of a sound education, we mean that full member experience. So we want you to be successful in the classroom. We want you to continue to learn leadership and your own personal and professional development. And we want you to build that culture of lifelong learning moving forward, right? This isn't just a 4-year experience. We want you to continue to invest in your own academic and educational development throughout the course of your life. Ryan, any closing thoughts before we wrap up?
No, sir. Yeah, thanks for the invitation, Alex, and thanks to you, those of you that were engaged. And yeah, feel free to follow up with me as well, even if I'm not your faculty staff advisor. I'd love to be in touch with other Delta Chi. So thanks for your time and logging on tonight. And thanks again, Alex. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your evenings. And again, don't hesitate to reach out to any of us if we can ever be of assistance. Thanks again and have a wonderful evening.
Good night.
Thanks, guys.